A man should not cry in front of his kids.
But ideally, you're not going to cry in front of your kids. They cry to you. Is it fair? No. Is life fair? No. Is the dynamic between a man, a woman, a child fair? No. But personally for me, I want to take that responsibility of being the one that's stronger than all of them. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that responsibility. I want that responsibility in my life. I want to feel like I was a hero to them in every way.
We must face the moment of truth, baby.
And
A man should not cry in front of his kids. What do you think about this, family? Let's get into it here at 180 Truth. Welcome back to 180 Truth.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
I know you can handle the truth. We're going to get into the truth of this question, this statement here, brought to us by Jubilee, a conversation between alpha males and beta males. Please, if you're not familiar with those terms, look it up. But the question is, the subject is it ever okay for a man to cry in front of his kids? Does that sound crazy to you? Well, we're going to get into this right here. I want to react to that conversation, that part of the conversation, and then I want to wrap it up at the end with some Christ-centered perspective as a father, as a director of men's ministry since 2005, as someone who's been around, thankfully had my father in my life. I want to share a perspective that I believe is Christ-centered and balanced. Let's get into it here at 180 Truth.
A man should not cry in front of his kids.
it ain't popular. It's not going to be popular to say this. But ideally, you're not going to cry in front of your kids. They cry to you. Is it fair? No. Is life fair? No. Is the dynamic between a man, a woman, a child fair? No. But personally for me, I want to take that responsibility of being the one that's stronger than all of them. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that responsibility. I want that responsibility in my life. I want to feel like I was a hero to them in every way. And I don't think a man that cries in front of his family is not the hero. But ideally, I'm not going to be doing that.
You know, again, that's an ideal that he's expressing. I don't know where he gets that ideal from. Again, I don't know. I'm not also a licensed therapist or want to try to psychoanalyze the brother. But keyword, he said ideal. And the thing about that kind of ideal is that it can be very crushing when you fail. Again, let's just say, for instance, something that I know I've seen over the years impact almost every single man is when a man's mother passes away. That is traumatizing, to say the least. I've never seen a single man be able to hold back tears. Another is when, unfortunately, I've seen where the child passes, one of the children passes. I've never seen a man be able to withhold tears. But he does say something very important. And I think he's maybe confusing it or wanting to, as he says, be the hero, be the source of strength. And I just think that a man can be the source of strength and remain being the one where he is strengthening them, strengthening the family, encouraging the family, leading the family, even through his tears.
Right. It's weird. I've never actually seen my dad cry till this day. Like, not even once. The kids is looking to their father for that strength. And so if they're seeing their dad cry, right, I feel like that creates fear in the situation the kid has with their father.
Yes, I totally agree, depending on the age of the child. You know, the reality is that children are meant to be exposed to things gradually. We live in a society and culture that wants to violate children. I think there is a desire to get them to become adults sooner than they are ready to bear the weight. So I agree that when a parent cries, it can disturb the child, traumatize the child, but it's also a learning lesson. When I was younger, I saw my father cry over two things, only two things. One, his love for his mother. By this point, she had already passed. And that impressed me to see, and he wasn't bubbling over with tears. I think sometimes we think that a man who's crying has lost all form of self-control. That's not accurate. But my father, in reflecting on his mother and all that he appreciated, cherished, and he missed taught me some things about what to value in life. Also, my father was a Puerto Rican nationalist. And so there would be tears of a sense of rage and resentment toward what he considered to be betrayal. The betrayal of Puerto Ricans on the island to other Puerto Ricans, who, the betraying the nationalist movement, and what he felt was a betrayal of the United States ideals in the nation of Puerto Rico, where the United States domestically hold to these incredible ideals, but in their foreign policy, it's another story. So I'm not sure about that either in regards to, again, never seeing your father cry. Another challenge is this: how do you teach your children to grieve? And again, I think this comes from a kind of Western machismo. Again, I've seen it with Latino culture as well, but teaching our young men how to grieve is critical so that they process sadness in a healthy way, because sadness in men can become depression, which manifests in risk-taking behaviors, or even in rage, which is anger is one of the stages of grief, and so it can manifest in uncontrollable rage if you don't teach people, especially boys, how to properly grieve.
If you're crying in front of your kids, it's the same thing as crying in front of your girl. It's a bad representation of what you're supposed to be in that situation for them.
Now I'll tell you when I do cry. Bro, when you see like one of those kids with Down syndrome get put in a high school basketball game, he starts nailing threes and the gym goes crazy, bro, I'll be crying my ass off. I'm so happy for the kid.
Yeah, there's something beautiful about that.
It's
That
like
whole
happy,
human
I'm like
thing.
laughing,
Yeah.
I'm like, but other than that, man, no, not at all. Calm the heat.
Here come the heat.
Can the
That's
person who
funny.
like has kids?
I have a father who I've never seen cry, so I get that. I was that man. Again, you have to understand my kids. My middle daughter, who I'm going to talk about, is 26 years old. Now, for some reason, out of all three of my children, that middle girl, from the time she turned 13 to 17, 18, we just butted heads, right? And the relationship wasn't going to where it should be going. And I want to be close to my kids. We sat down, she was about 20, maybe 19, 20 years old. We had a heart-to-heart about our feelings and how we really felt about each other, and I cried. And 7 years later, better relationship than we've ever had, because she saw a human part of me and not just me trying to be what you guys are talking about, which is a good thing too. You can count my mom.
Wow. Again, what he's confessing here, what I'm hearing is he wasn't always the best dad. And so in presenting a picture of humility in what I would call repentance, a moment of real transparency and vulnerability, he actually sowed the seeds through his tears, very biblical, of what would be reconciliation. Again, a man needs to be strategic with his tears, but repressing that pain is potentially very unhealthy. Whatever you do, you need to be able to know how to process the grief.
My wife can count on one hand how many times she's seen me cry. I think my son had, and my other daughter have it. But I'm going to tell you, for that enriching moment, and that's again just coming with years, of having those tears with her and talking about how important it was that our relationship worked, and then hearing her come back and saying she felt the same way and breaking through that, I'm the father, I'm going to be the strong one, made her break down, and both of us be closer than we ever have been.
Can I ask you a question about that? Do you think that if you could have set her down earlier than the age that you did and just had a vulnerable conversation, that maybe it could have happened? Like it wouldn't have had to build all the way up to tears?
No.
She wouldn't have been able to hear it, or?
No, because what was going on from my understanding of our relationship is that, young people, I'm very independent, my children are very independent. They don't want to be controlled in a certain way. And as a father, you still have to keep that control. She was only seeing that side. So she was only seeing this domineering person trying to squish what she thought that she wanted to be or who she wanted to be. And that wasn't it. I was just trying to play the father role. I saw my dad do it. Never.
Just for the record, I'm not really quite sure how they classified this brother as a beta, but anyway.
Tear. He's that man, and I was raised by that man, and I took that on. I remember sitting my son down and telling him, boys, don't cry. And I still to this day regret that. And I still talk to him. He's 24. I still talk to him about I was wrong, because I do not think that's the way we're supposed to live our lives. And I think that's why you go back to the statistic of how a lot of men are depressed. We're supposed to have emotions. We're human. Now, I don't believe every time you turn around, you should be in front of your children, ooh, and your wife, like,
Right.
I think that's a drastic thing. But I know dropping a tear as a father for me
made a relationship, and so much closer and so much better than it would. I'm telling you, I know than it would have ever been.
You don't think you could have shown that vulnerability without the tear?
No.
My dad was capable of expressing emotion, not from the standpoint of being a whiny little baby. He held it down in my family. My parents are the happiest couple I've ever seen, still to this day. But my dad was able to, and still is able to, at funerals, be able to show emotion during movies when he feels the emotion, be able to show up and do that.
Right.
I'd never see him whining about, like what you guys are saying, whining about just issues happening in his life, like at work and what he's doing. Never. He deals with that on his own. But he is showing up vulnerably when he is experiencing an emotion, not from a whiny baby place, but from the freeness that he has with it. And I even think like when I first went out to college, he's tearing up too.
So I would just like to say,
just to say again, men being moved by something that's beautiful, being moved by something that's good, being moved by what is true. It's not just always grief. Again, it's all about the appropriate place and spaces with regards to tears. I have done my very best to teach my children that with me and their mom and with family and others, that it's a safe place and space to cry. What I've taught my children, especially again my boys, is that the world is not a safe place to cry. That the world is not worthy of your tears. But you need to be able to know that your family and those closest to you that have proven that they are trustworthy, you need not be so prideful that you say there's no place for you where you can go to experience grace, the grace of God with skin on, where you can know that you can let the tears flow however they need to fall. Again, the world may not be safe, but with family, with friends, it need be safe.
this is a field I specialize in. I'm a program manager for a nonprofit that focuses on mental health. And a lot of the times what we get in our clients are men that are coming in dealing with childhood trauma, these expectations and standards of trying to live up to the quote unquote masculine ideal. So a lot of the times we have men coming in because they're still trying to seek approval in their 30s, or they're still trying to get that male validation, in their 40s. And it goes back to making sure we understand the difference between regulating your emotions and suppressing them.
I love that. Knowing the difference between regulating your emotions and repressing them. Critical for a successful, thriving life in general, but especially again for men upon whom, as that brother with the blue jacket on, the blue blazer said, our families look to us to be able to gain strength.
I think that's why I said earlier, to be an alpha, you have to be balanced. You guys can be emotional as well. You guys can be vulnerable. It doesn't make you less than. Just like a woman being more assertive doesn't make her less than a woman. If you feel like you don't want to promote being emotional in front of your kids, I've asked the question, does that kind of fall into toxic masculinity for your son?
Well, first, I didn't say anything about not being vulnerable. Vulnerable is the word that I brought up. So I think being vulnerable is very important. I think physically crying in front of your kids is not ideal. This is not about an ego stroke or trying to be overly masculine. I think being vulnerable as a man is one of the strongest things a man can actually do.
Wow.
It's just that I don't think that crying, particularly sobbing, is going to be very healthy as the leader and the person that they're supposed to.
There is a place where that uncontrollable breaking down, you need to be able to know where to do that, how to do that. Whether it's between you and Jesus in the shower, you and your pastor, your mentor, those other men that will respect you and understand the pain that you're going through.
Come to for that safety and that care.
How would you basically explain to your kids how they feel like they should let out their sadness? Should they keep, especially if you feel like you're not really expressing sad emotions in front of them?
I think probably the best thing I can do is explain to you what my goal as a father is to explain them the truth of the world. Truly, hey, this is the truth of the world. This is how the world is. Here's some competencies and things you can do to set yourself up, because my ultimate goal for my children is to have choice. So I can have a son, he could be gay, he could cry. He could be straight, he could cry. I could have daughters that were dominant masculine. I don't care as long as they have choice. I personally, my preference and what I aspire to be and what I want to be and what I get to be is that strong man for my family.
We all kind of believe.
Well, again, just to hear what he's saying, I'm not imposing this standard on my children, but I am going to model this for my children. I want them to make a choice. So ultimately, he's going to choose to teach them and model a particular way of being that he believes is beneficial. But he's not squashing them. He's not repressing them. Very fascinating. Very interesting.
That like we have to be a hero for our kids, right? Especially when they're super young. And honestly, I agree. I think it's totally like you need to be a role model for your kids, you know, and you need to be a safe space, which I completely agree with. But things happen as they grow up, you know what I mean? Especially when they go towards their teen years, when they start being more in touch with their emotions, when they're actually like feeling a lot of different things and feeling the pressure of society and everything that's collapsing around them. Sometimes they don't just need like a hero, they need a father to like commune with, to like actually talk with.
So family, what do you think? What are your thoughts? I will say this, that in the scriptures, we are given the Psalms that give us language to lament and to grieve and to cry. The book of Lamentations is literally that. It's a book, poetic book expressing deep pain, deep grief, as the people of God experienced the consequences of their sins. So we are given language in scripture on how to grieve. As men, my brothers, what language do you have to express grief, sadness, the stages of grief, moving through the stages of shock and denial, blaming and bargaining, the depression and the anger to the place of acceptance? Do you have language for all of that? Can you identify it? Because there's power in your words, but there's also the need to have a vocabulary to express what is happening in you. Again, for the most part, I agree with a lot of what I heard here. I think these brothers had a right heart with regards to their desire to be great fathers for their children. Our children are going to need to be able to extract strength from us. And so we have to model strength that is rooted and grounded not just in our own abilities and capacities, but in the one who is greater than us, the one who understands us when we are at our weakest or our strongest, the one who knows us through and through, the one who collects all of our tears and knows all of our wordless prayers. And so in that name, the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I bless you. Thank you for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe, share this video, and leave a comment because that'll help the algorithm and get a conversation going. Let me know your thoughts and reflections on this topic. Grace and peace to you. Thank you for being part of the 180 Truth family. God bless.